There's a sentence still living in your head. Somebody said something to you. It could have been today, it could have been last week, it could have been 3 years ago. It was only a few words. Maybe they weren't even meant cruelly. Maybe they were meant far too cruelly, and it got in, and it stayed. And ever since, you've answered that person about 40 times. In the shower, in the car, lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, assembling the perfect reply, the one that would shut them up forever. You've won that argument dozens of times in your head. And still, every time the memory comes back, your chest tightens the exact same way. Maybe it was a message. You read it, reread it again, hunting for the tone, trying to decide whether it was a jab or just you. You typed a reply, deleted it. Typed a harder one, deleted that too. You sat 20 minutes with your thumb frozen over the screen, and when you finally sent something, you were no longer inside your own day, you were inside theirs. Maybe it was at work. That comment in the meeting, delivered in front of everyone, with that little smile attached, and you felt the heat climb, felt your ears go hot, and you fired back. Or worse, you said nothing, and then lay awake all night because of the answer you didn't give. Maybe it was at home, with someone you love. 10 words that turned into 3 days of heavy silence inside your own house. And this is where I have to tell you the first thing tonight, and it isn't comfortable. You didn't lose that argument. You lost control. And you handed it over for free. Do the math with me. How much time did that person actually spend on you? 4 seconds, 1 sentence, maybe 2. For them, it's over. They slept fine. They ate lunch. They laughed at something on TV. They probably don't even remember exactly what they said. And how many hours did you spend on it? Add it all up. Every replay of the scene, every rehearsed comeback, every night a subject walked through your head at bedtime. You land somewhere between 10 and 100 hours of your life. Hours where your body was here, but your mind was rented out. And here's the detail that stings. Rented out for free. Nobody paid you for them. You donated them. That's reacting. And that's what we're going to spend this next hour on. Not how to win arguments. Not how to keep a sharp comeback loaded on your tongue. Something much rarer, much quieter, and much more dangerous to anyone who tries to handle you. How to stop being operated by remote control. Because that's what's happening, and I'm going to show you how. There's an old image that captures this better than any modern explanation. Imagine you are a house. Not a big house. Not a beautiful one. Just a house. Doors, rooms, a kitchen, a place where you sleep. That house is your inner life, your mood, your focus, your peace, the way you see yourself when nobody's watching. Now imagine there's a key to that house, and the key is in your pocket. Every time somebody says something and you react on autopilot, you take that key out and place it in a stranger's hand. And that stranger walks into your house, turns on whatever lights he wants, breaks whatever he wants, and decides which room you're sleeping in tonight. He decides whether you eat dinner in peace. He decides whether you can focus at work tomorrow. He decides, more often than you'd like, how you treat people who had nothing to do with any of it. Because anger picked up out there always gets unloaded in here. And the absurd part is, he never even asked for the key. You offered it. The Stoics understood this with a clarity that's still unsettling 2,000 years later. And the man who put it into the sharpest words wasn't an emperor, wasn't a nobleman, wasn't a well-fed sage in a garden. He was a slave. His name was Epictetus. He was born the property of another man in what is now Turkey. He was sold, taken to Rome, bought by a clerk who worked for the Emperor Nero. He had a crippled leg, most likely broken by an owner's violence. He owned nothing. Not even his own body belonged to him under the law. And it was that man who couldn't decide where he slept who wrote one of the most powerful sentences in the history of human thought. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the judgments they make about things. Sit with that for a second, because it's more radical than it first appears. He isn't saying that nothing bad happens. He was enslaved. He knew perfectly well that bad things happen. He isn't telling you to pretend everything's fine. He's saying something else. Between what happens to you and your suffering, there's an intermediate step, an invisible one, a step you take so fast you'd swear it doesn't exist. That step is the judgment, the interpretation, the label you glue onto the event in 3/10 of a second without noticing that decides whether it's going to be a passing annoyance or a 3-year wound. And if that step exists, then a space exists too, a gap. A crack between what happens to you and what you become because of it. The man who knows that crack is there is free, even enslaved, even crippled, even inside Nero's palace. And the man who doesn't know it's there is commanded, even if he's the emperor of Rome. Speaking of which, the other man you need to meet tonight was exactly that, emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, with armies, with money, with the legal right to destroy anyone who displeased him. And he wrote to himself in a private notebook he never imagined anyone would read, a line that reads like it was written for you today. Take away the judgment that I have been harmed, and the complaint is gone. Take away the complaint, and the harm is gone. An emperor who could have ended anyone who insulted him chose instead to write himself a reminder about not taking offense. Why? Because he understood something almost nobody understands. The man who takes offense is obeying. An insult is an order wearing a costume. It says, feel this now. And when you feel it, you've carried out the order. You did exactly what they wanted, at the moment they wanted, with the intensity they wanted. You were obedient. Now, before I hand you the 7 laws, I need to clear up a misunderstanding. Because most people who hear don't react get it wrong, practice it wrong, and quit in 2 weeks convinced it doesn't work. Not reacting is not swallowing it. Swallowing is feeling everything, storing everything, letting it hot inside, and detonating 3 months later on the wrong person. That isn't philosophy. That's a pressure cooker with a blocked valve. The Stoics never taught that. Seneca, an immensely wealthy and politically dangerous man, wrote entire volumes on anger precisely because he knew it's real, it's strong, and it charges a price. Not reacting isn't being cold either. It isn't becoming a bloodless man who answers everything with a half smile and a calendar quote. That's anesthesia, not mastery. Anesthesia is what you do when you can't stand to feel. Mastery is what you do when you can stand to feel and still choose. And not reacting is definitely not cowardice. It isn't letting people walk on you to avoid trouble. There's a canyon between the man who stays quiet because he's afraid and the man who stays quiet because he decided to. Both are silent, but they are not the same species. The first one is trapped. The second one is armed. So what is it then? It's the difference between 2 words people use as synonyms that are not synonyms at all. Reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic. It's the body grabbing the wheel before you do. It's the answer that comes out preloaded, in the same tone, at the same speed, at the same volume as whatever hit you. Reacting is being an echo. Someone shouts, you shout. Someone provokes, you defend. Someone dismisses you, you prove your worth. In none of those moments did you choose anything. You were pressed like a button. Responding is chosen. It's you looking at the situation, understanding what's actually at stake, deciding the best move, and making it. Sometimes responding means speaking. Sometimes it means speaking hard. Sometimes it means walking out. Sometimes it means doing absolutely nothing. The difference is never in the action itself. The difference is in who decided. Reacting is obeying. Responding is governing. What I'm going to hand you now is 7 laws. 7, not 70. 7 principles the Stoics used to stop being an echo and start being an authority. I call them the laws of silence, and you'll understand why. Because silence here doesn't mean the absence of words. Silence to a Stoic was a state of command. It's the sound a mind makes when nobody outside it is moving the furniture. Each of these laws is short to understand and hard to live, like everything worth having. Let's start with the first. and it's the foundation of all the others. Without it, none of the remaining 6 work. The first law, the law of the palsy. There's one place where all of your freedom lives. A small place, nearly invisible, that lasts less than 2 seconds. It's the space between what happens and what you do. The trigger arrives. Someone says the line. The phone buzzes with the message. A car cuts you off on the highway. Your boss says that thing in front of everyone. In that instant, there's a crack of time before your response, in which absolutely everything is still possible. In that crack, you're still free. The key is still in your pocket. And most of the time, you sprint through that crack with your eyes closed. And you're already on the other side, shouting before you notice you had a choice. Epictetus taught his students a very specific exercise for this. It wasn't a nice idea, it was a drill. When a strong impression arrived, when something struck the chest and demanded an immediate answer, he told them to do one thing: talk to the impression. Literally. Say to it, "Wait for me a little, impression. Let me see what you are and what you're about. Let me test you." Sounds strange? It does. But it's one of the most advanced psychological tools antiquity ever produced. And modern science took 2,000 years to arrive at roughly the same thing under a different name. Notice what he's doing. He's separating 2 things your mind glues together: the event and the meaning of the event. He's treating that first sensation, that punch in the stomach, as a proposal, not a verdict. Someone knocked on the door. That doesn't mean they come in. Because that's exactly what anger does to you. It arrives dressed as absolute truth. It shows up saying, "This is unacceptable. This person disrespected you. If you don't say something right now, you're a coward." It never arrives saying, "This is one possible interpretation among several." It arrives with the authority of a final ruling. And in the heat of the moment, it's the most convincing thing on earth. The problem is that it's only convincing for about 90 seconds. After that, the chemical wave running through your body starts to drop on its own, even if nothing outside changes. 90 seconds. If you can hold 90 seconds, you're no longer the same man who was about to answer. That's why almost every large disaster in a man's life happens inside a very short window. Nobody destroys a 12-year marriage after 3 days of thinking. It's destroyed in 4 minutes. Nobody loses a job after reflecting for a week. It's lost in 1 sentence. Nobody ends a friendship of 20 years through a slow process. It ends in a 30-second voice message sent at 11 at night. That tiny window is where your life gets decided. And the law of the pause is simply this: put something inside that window. Anything. A deep breath. 10 seconds counted honestly, not fake counted. A glass of water. A walk around the block. 1 silent sentence, said only inward. I'm going to answer this, but not now. This isn't softness. It's engineering. You are building a physical obstacle between the impulse and your mouth. And there's a detail almost nobody notices that changes everything. The speed of your response reveals who's in command. When you fire back instantly, in the same tone, at the same temperature, you're announcing out loud, "I run on remote control," and you just found a button. No manipulator needs more than that. They test once, they see you react, and now they know the exact price of pulling you out of yourself. You've become a predictable machine. Insert coin, product comes out. Now picture the same scene with a man who pauses. The provocation lands, and nothing comes back. No anger, no defense, no justification. Just 2 or 3 seconds of silence and a calm look. And then, if he wants, a quiet question or 1 dry sentence. That dismantles people. Not because it was a clever rhetorical trick, but because they couldn't get in. They pushed the door, and the door didn't open. There's an old account I like about this. A man spent years publicly provoking a philosopher, calling him names, trying to humiliate him in front of others. And the philosopher, after all that time, said only, "I don't get angry when a donkey kicks me, and I'm not going to take a donkey to court." The insulto was never the issue. The issue was who had authority over him. You have to decide something today. You have to decide whether any person on a bad day with one badly placed sentence gets to hijack your nervous system. Because right now they do, and they don't have to. How to train this starting tomorrow? Pick one small, recurring trigger. Traffic works beautifully. The checkout line works. That relative who talks too much works perfectly. Don't start with the hottest one. Don't start with the person who hurts you most. Start small. And the next time it happens, you're not going to do anything heroic. You're just going to notice. Notice the heat rising, the jaw locking, the answer forming in your throat. And let all of it happen without executing it. You're going to discover something unsettling. The urge to react passes. It passes by itself. It never needed to be obeyed. It only needed to be endured for a minute. After a couple of weeks of doing this, something changes permanently. You start to see the crack. It stops being invisible. You begin to notice in real time the exact instant when you're about to hand over the key to your house. And from the day you can see that, you can never again pretend you had no choice. The second law, the law of silence. There's something men do when they're insecure, and they do it without noticing, and it's one of the largest sources of lost power in adult life. They talk too much. Not in the sense of chattering. Too much in the exact sense. Saying more than was necessary to people who didn't need to know at a moment when staying quiet would have been stronger. Epictetus had a short manual, only a few pages, compiled by students, and in one chapter he gives a blunt instruction about this. Let silence be your goal for the most part. Say only what is necessary, and in few words. And then he lists what to avoid. Talking about parties, food, drink, famous people, speaking badly of others, boasting about your own deeds and the dangers you faced. He was essentially describing the bar table conversations of 2,000 years ago. Nothing has changed. Swap the wine for beer and the theater for football, and it's the same conversation. But why would a philosopher care so much? Why spend time teaching students to talk less when he could be teaching logic or physics? Because talking too much is leakage. Everything you say about yourself is information about where your hinges are. You tell people what hurts you. You tell them what you want. You tell them what you're afraid of losing. And people listen. The good ones listen to help you. The bad ones listen to file it away. And there's another leak, subtler, and it's the most expensive of them all. Talking about what you're going to do. Have you noticed the strange feeling of telling someone a big plan? You say you're starting a business, you're getting in shape, you're going back to school, you're leaving that job, and they look at you with admiration and say, "That's amazing, man, you're going to crush it." And you feel a warm, pleasant satisfaction, almost identical to the satisfaction of having done it. Almost identical. That's the problem. Your brain is terrible at distinguishing recognition for the deed from recognition for the intention. It receives the applause and marks the item as partially delivered. The tension that was pushing you toward action goes slack, and weeks later you notice you talked about the project 6 times and worked on it twice. Silence preserves pressure. That's why the man who says little about what he's going to do usually does more. Now let's get to the most powerful use of silence, which is silence as an answer. There's a kind of question and a kind of comment that deserve no words at all. You know them well. It's the jab disguised as a joke, the invasive question delivered with a face of concern, the provocation with a half smile dropped in the middle of a group. The mistake almost everyone makes is answering on the same field. You defend yourself, you explain, you justify. And the moment you explain yourself, you've accepted the accusation as legitimate. You walked into the courtroom they just built, and they're the judge. There's an alternative almost nobody uses. Don't walk in. 3 seconds of silence and a direct look with no hostility in it say more than any sharp comeback, because they communicate the one thing that person didn't want to hear, that didn't reach me. And silence has a curious chemistry. It hands the weight of the sentence back to the person who said it. When you don't fill the empty space, the line hangs in the air, alone, and everyone in the room hears it again, including the one who said it. And then the person usually does one of two things: laughs awkwardly or starts explaining. Watch that closely. They start explaining. The roles just switched, and you didn't have to do a thing. If you do need to say something, the Stoic default isn't a counterattack. It's the calm question. Why are you asking me that? What exactly did you mean by that? Asked with no sarcasm, no venom, with genuine curiosity. It's devastating, because it forces the person to say out loud, in full sentences, the thing they only had the nerve to say in disguise. And if they back off and say it was a joke, fine, let it drop. You don't need a verbal win. You already got the real one. You weren't moved. There's a line attributed to Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, that compresses the whole principle into a joke. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we may listen more and speak less. But I want to be clear about what this law is not, because this one is easy to deform. Silence is not avoidance. If there's a hard conversation that needs to happen, a boundary that needs to be set, a truth that needs to be told to someone in your house, silence isn't philosophy. It's cowardice with a nice name. Stoic silence exists so you don't spend words cheaply, not so you can dodge the words that cost something. The ruler is simple. Before you speak, 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is this the right moment? If all 3 are yes, speak, and speak without fear. If any one of them is no, you just saved energy you're going to need later. Over time, you'll notice something funny. People start paying more attention when you open your mouth. Not because you got smarter, but because your word became scarce. And scarce things carry value. The man who talks constantly is background noise. The man who speaks rarely is an event. The 3rd law, the law of nitrogen monoxide offense. Now we arrive at the hardest law to accept. It's so counterintuitive that most people's first reaction is to call it unfair. Nobody can offend you without your permission. I know how that sounds. It sounds like one of those self-help lines printed on a poster. But hold the irritation for 3 minutes, because once you see the mechanism, it stops being a pretty phrase and becomes a tool with an edge. Let's take it apart. Someone says a sentence. The sentence is a vibration in the air. Sound waves arriving at your ear and converting into electrical signal. Up to that point, nothing has happened to you. A noise crossed a room. Then comes the invisible step we talked about at the start, your judgment, your interpretation. You receive the sentence, and in 0.3 of a second you do 3 things at once, without noticing. You decide it was about you decide it was true enough to hurt, and you decide it was serious. And only after those 3 steps does the pain arrive. Marcus Aurelius wrote it in the driest way possible. Take away the judgment that I have been harmed, and the complaint is gone. Take away the complaint, and the harm is gone. He isn't saying the person was kind. He isn't saying you should enjoy it. He's saying there's an intermediate step performed by you, without which the insult never becomes a wound. An offense requires your signature. And there's proof of this. You've already lived through without noticing. A stranger screaming on the street calls you an idiot. You feel nothing. At most you laugh and tell the story at dinner. Your father says the same word at Sunday lunch, and you carry it for 20 years. The word was identical. The sound was identical. What changed was the value you assigned to the source, and the quiet suspicion that maybe it was true. That means something uncomfortable. Almost every insult that truly hurts has found a doubt that was already inside you. When someone calls you stupid and you're absolutely certain of your own capability, it's noise. When someone calls you stupid and there's a boy at the back of the closet who always suspected he might be, that's surgical. The insult doesn't open the wound. It presses a finger into one that was already there. And here's the part that turns this law into one of the most useful tools of your life. The pain shows you where it is. Every time a sentence knocks you down disproportionately, you've just been handed a map. not of the other person's character, but of your own inventory. Whatever is still unresolved inside you lights up, like a red warning on a dashboard. The average man uses that moment to attack the person. The man who's actually working on himself uses that moment to write down the address. There's an old image that captures this better: the two arrows. The first arrow is what happened. Someone disrespected you, someone excluded you, someone talked about you behind your back. You didn't choose that one. It came from outside, it landed, and nobody here is saying it doesn't hurt. The second arrow is the one you fire. It's the hour you spend replaying the scene, the rehearsed speech, the how dare she, the inventory of every other time someone treated you like that, the conclusion that this always happens to you, that maybe there's something about you that invites it. The first arrow wounds, the second one maims, and the second one is always fired by you. Notice that 90% of your suffering over that episode happened after the episode. The scene lasted 20 seconds. The suffering lasted 20 days. Who extended it? This isn't blame. I'm not telling you it's your fault. I'm telling you something far better. The command is yours. Blame is about the past and is useless. Command is about right now and changes everything. There's another line from Marcus Aurelius that's brutal in its simplicity. Have I been harmed? Remove the opinion that I've been harmed and the harm is gone. And elsewhere he adds, if someone despises me, that's their concern. Mine is to do and say nothing that deserves contempt. Notice how he divides the territory. 2 columns. What's his and what belongs to others. Other people's opinions go outside. His own conduct stays inside. And that's the practical question this law gives you for the rest of your life, and it's worth its weight in gold on bad days. Is what they said true? If it's true, it isn't an offense. It's information. It hurt because it landed where you still have work to do. Thank them silently and go fix it. It doesn't matter that it was delivered with cruelty. If it's true, the cruelty of the delivery doesn't cancel the usefulness of the content. If it isn't true, then it's an inaccurate description of you, made by someone who doesn't know you well, said for reasons that belong entirely to them. An inaccurate description doesn't change the thing described. If someone says, "This table is made of glass," the table doesn't turn into glass. So what's left? What's left is your urge to convince them. And that's where nearly everyone gets lost. Because most fights aren't about the offense. They're about the need to make the other person admit they were wrong. It's the courtroom. You want a verdict. You want public acknowledgement. And until you get it, you won't let go. That verdict almost never comes. And while you're waiting for it, you're chained to that person on a short leash. The day you give up on the verdict is the day you're released. Not because you forgave out of sweetness, not because you're a saint, but because you finally understood that the other person's approval was never a required ingredient for your peace. How to train this law? The next time something wounds you, before responding to anything, ask 3 questions in order. Is it true? If it's true, what do I do about it? If it isn't true, why do I need this person to change their mind? That third question is the one that frees you. And it stings a little, because the honest answer is almost always, because I'm still trying to win an argument that started long before this person showed up. The 4th law, the law of the mirror. There's something that completely changes your relationship with aggressive people once you understand it, and it's one of the most precise observations the Stoics left about human behavior. Nobody gives what they don't have. Picture a cup filled to the brim. If someone bumps into it, what spills out? The answer sounds obvious, but it's the core of this law. What was already inside. If it's coffee, coffee spills. If it's poison, poison spills. The bump didn't decide the contents. The bump only revealed them. People work exactly the same way. When someone gets shaken by a bad day, a frustration, a fear, a debt, a dead marriage, out comes whatever they've been carrying. And if what they carry is bitterness, bitterness comes out, aimed at whoever happens to be nearby. Often that person nearby is you, and you assume it was about you. Marcus Aurelius had a mental ritual for this that he ran every morning before going out. He wrote to himself, roughly, "Today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, envious, and unsocial. All of this happens to them because they cannot tell good from evil." Notice the practical genius of that. He isn't being a pessimist. He's removing surprise from the equation. Almost all of our anger comes not from the event, but from the surprise, from the shock, from that "I can't believe she did that to me." Frustration is the distance between what you expected and what showed up. If you wake up expecting to run into difficult people, the difficult person becomes scenery. You don't get angry at the rain when you left the house with an umbrella. And it goes further into a thought that's almost uncomfortable in its generosity. When someone acts badly, they act that way because, in that moment, they believe they're doing what's right, or they're confused about what's good. Nobody wakes up thinking, "Today I'll be the villain of the story." Everyone is the hero of their own version. That doesn't mean the person isn't responsible. This isn't about excusing anyone. It's about the temperature at which you handle it. Seneca, who wrote an entire treatise on anger at his own brother's request, makes a sharp observation. Anger is always a judgment about ourselves. We get angry because we believe we were treated worse than we deserved. Which means anger depends on a prior calculation, an expectation, a ledger of deserving that we keep without noticing. And he adds something that survives 2,000 years and lands squarely in your family group chat. We get more irritated by small annoyances than by great tragedies. Nobody collapses over the disaster. We collapse because someone left the light on. Now, to the practical use of this law, because it has an application that changes your day tomorrow. When someone attacks you, there's a question that shifts the entire axis of the scene. What is this person carrying that they need to do this? That's not a question of pity. It's a question of reading. People who are whole don't need to diminish anyone. A fulfilled man doesn't spend his time needling acquaintances. Someone at peace feels no need to knock the ground out from under you. Aggression is almost always the bill for a pain that person couldn't pay alone, being pushed onto the nearest counter. That changes what the offense means. It stops being a verdict on your worth and becomes a bank statement of another person's inner life. You're not receiving an evaluation, you're receiving a leak. And here comes the most important test of this law, the one that separates the man who studied from the man who trained. You're a cup too. When life bumps into you, and it will, what spills? Because it's very easy to apply this law to other people and use it as a diagnosis for everyone but yourself. It's comfortable to say, he did that because he's unresolved. The hard part is turning the mirror around and asking what comes out of you when the day goes badly. How you speak to the person serving your coffee when you're late. How you answer your kid's message when work is heavy. How you treat the people who depend on you when nobody important is watching. The Stoics didn't work toward a cup nobody bumps into. That doesn't exist. They worked on changing the contents so that any bump could only spill something clean. And there's a beautiful side effect. When you stop taking other people's aggression personally, you don't get weaker in the relationship. You get firmer. Because now you can set a boundary without being on fire. You can say no, not this, in a calm voice. And the boundary said calmly weighs far more than one that's shouted, because the shout reveals that they got in. The calm reveals that they didn't. The fifth law, the law of indifference. There's a kind of person who doesn't want to beat you. They want you to play. As long as you're in the game, arguing, explaining, sending voice messages at 11 at night, they're winning, regardless of the score. Because their goal was never to win the argument. The goal was to occupy space inside your head, and they already have. Marcus Aurelius wrote a line about this that's one of the sharpest things ever written about revenge. The best revenge is not to be like the man who did the wrong. Read it slowly, because there's an entire inversion inside it. He doesn't say don't take revenge because it's ugly. He doesn't appeal to kindness or to religious morality. He uses the word revenge and tells you which kind is best. The best revenge isn't hitting back. The best revenge is not becoming that. Because when you hit back in the same tone, something happens that nobody talks about. You adopt their method. You accept their rules, their field, their language. And for a few minutes, you are them. You might even win the argument. But you walked out of there as a worse version of yourself, and they got that for free. That's the hidden cost of every fight won by shouting. You won, and you turned into it. And here we reach the most misunderstood concept in all of Stoicism, which is indifference. Stoic indifference isn't caring about nothing. It isn't pretending life has no flavor. The Stoics loved their families, had friends, grieved deaths. Seneca wrote devastating letters of consolation precisely because he knew the size of loss. Indifference, in the technical sense, means this has no power over my character. It's a classification, not an anesthetic. You look at something and decide which side of the line it lives on. Inside the line is what depends on you, your conduct, your judgment, your effort, your word. Outside is everything else. What people think, what they do, what they post, the weather, the past, traffic, your brother-in-law's opinions. The mistake that consumes people's lives is spending the whole day working outside the line. And now I want to give you the most immediate application of this law because it applies to almost every provocation you receive this week. Don't give them an audience. A provocation is a performance, and like every performance, it needs an audience to exist. When you react, you applaud. When you get irritated, you bought the ticket. When you answer angry, you became the show. Remove the audience and the play closes. That's especially true in the world you live in, which the ancients never imagined. The comment section, the vague post aimed at you, the screenshot passed around the group. All of it is a machine built to generate reaction, operated by people who feed on exactly that. Replying is fertilizer, and there's a distinction you need to burn into memory, because it's the line between mastery and wounded pride. Not giving an audience is not the silent treatment. The silent treatment is quiet aggression. It's punishment. It's you performing indifference while boiling inside, waiting for them to notice you're upset and come find you. That isn't the fifth law. That's reacting in a different costume, and it's usually the most childish form of reaction there is, because it requires the other person to guess. Stoic indifference is calm and holds no grudge. You stay polite, you still say good morning, you don't make faces, don't disappear, don't punish. You simply stop handing over what they came to collect. One curious detail. When you actually do this, some people get far more agitated than if you'd fought with them. They'll call you arrogant, cold, full of yourself. That's usually the clearest sign that you got it right. They're feeling the absence of fuel. And there's one place where this law is hardest, which is at home, with the people you love. Careful here, because not giving an audience can't become emotional abandonment. With people who matter, the application is different. You don't enter the hot version of the conversation, but you schedule the cold one. I'm not going to talk about this right now the way we both are. Tomorrow morning, I want to sit down and talk about it properly. That isn't avoidance. That's choosing the ground where the conversation has a chance of working. Not reacting with people you love doesn't mean vanishing. It means moving the clock so the conversation happens between two adults instead of two wounded children. The sixth law, the law of delay. Seneca wrote 3 entire books about anger. Embedded in them is a sentence that solves more practical problems than most modern therapy. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not understanding, not analysis, not forgiveness. Delay. That's it. Let time pass. He explains why with cruel clarity. Anger refuses to be postponed. It wants now. Speed is its signature. And the only way to defeat something whose entire strength comes from speed is to take the speed away. You don't have to defeat anger. You only have to survive it for a few hours. It dies on its own. All anger has an expiration date. The problem is that the damage it causes doesn't. There's an old story that illustrates this, famous for being so simple. A master, feeling rage rise against a servant who had made a mistake, looked at him and said only, "I would punish you if I were not angry." He didn't say the mistake didn't matter. He didn't say it was fine. He said he wouldn't carry out the punishment in that state, because a decision made inside anger isn't a decision, it's a symptom. Think about how many things in your life have been destroyed inside that hot window. The message you sent at 11:30 at night. The email you answered in 4 minutes with your hands shaking. The resignation given in the middle of a bad meeting. The sentence you said to your mother that you'd trade 10 years of your life to erase. None of that was decided by you. It was decided by a chemical wave that was already gone by the time you woke up the next morning, and it left you the bill. There's a practice that survived the centuries and remains one of the most effective there is. Write the reply and don't send it. Write all of it. Write with all the venom. Don't hold back. Say every single thing you feel like saying, no filter at all. Because the filter is exactly what keeps the anger from leaving you. And then put it away. Don't send it. Go to sleep. The next day, read it. You'll have one of the strangest and most useful experiences of your adult life. You'll read a text written by a stranger using your name. You'll recognize the handwriting and not recognize the person. In the overwhelming majority of cases, you'll delete it with enormous relief, thinking, "Thank God I didn't send that." What you didn't send is an asset. It's a relationship preserved, a job kept, a child who won't carry a sentence for the rest of their life. Now, an important warning, because this law has a deformed version too. Delay is not avoidance. Delaying means postponing the answer in order to give the better answer. Avoiding means postponing the answer in order to never give it. If you use the law of delay to never have the hard conversation, never set the boundary, never say the truth that needs saying, you're not practicing philosophy. You're using a Seneca quote as an excuse. The practical rule that closes this is simple, and you can adopt it today. Nothing important gets decided while hot, and every postponed answer needs an appointment. If you said you'd answer later, answer later. Put it on the calendar if you have to. Because delay without a deadline turns into resentment, and resentment is anger that refused to die and became furniture in the house. And there's a side benefit here worth gold. The man who answers cold looks far stronger than the man who answers hot. The reply given the next day, short, calm, and precise, carries a weight no shouting ever has. It communicates that you had time to think and your position didn't change. That's authority. Shouting is speed. Authority is choice. The seventh law, the law of silent action. The seventh law is where all of this becomes a life instead of a theory, because the previous six teach you not to spend energy. This one teaches you where to spend it. Marcus Aurelius wrote himself a line that is practically a punch. Stop arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. He was tired, I imagine, of exactly the things we get tired of. People who know a lot and do little. Conversation that replaces action. Philosophy that becomes entertainment. And what does that have to do with not reacting? Everything. Because there's one kind of reaction that's the most expensive of all, and it's the most respectable in appearance. The need to prove. Prove you're capable. Prove they were wrong about you. Prove you're not what they said. Prove it to your father, to your old boss, to that group of friends, to everyone who doubted. That's the longest reaction there is, because it can last a lifetime. And it's treacherous because it looks like motivation. It looks like drive. But look at the mechanism. The man who's proving is still being commanded. The agenda is still written by somebody else. You simply outsource the script of your life to whoever hurt you. Silent action is the opposite. It's working without narration. That means three very concrete things. First, don't announce. Don't tell people you're starting, that you're changing, that this time is different. Just start. The announcement spends the energy execution needs. And the announcement creates an audience. And an audience creates the wrong kind of pressure. And the wrong kind of pressure makes you chase approval instead of results. Second, answer with fact, not with sentences. When someone doubts you, the right answer is almost never a sentence. It's a month of work. You don't need to tell the guy who undercut you in the meeting that you're competent. You need to deliver something so well made the subject dies on its own. Third, arrive finished. Let the result be the first anyone hears of it. There's a brutal difference between saying, "I'm going to start a business," and simply showing up with a business already running. Between saying, "I'm going to change," and appearing changed after 6 months of silence. The second case is not open to debate. There's nothing to argue against an accomplished fact. And there's a beautiful consequences to living this way. You stop needing to win arguments. Think of someone you genuinely respect, someone who commands respect without raising their voice. It's probably a person who says little about themselves, who doesn't chase recognition, who doesn't get into fights online, and who does what they say. You don't respect them for what they argued. You respect the accumulation. That's reputation, and reputation is the one answer that can't be rebooted. There's another line from Marcus Aurelius that closes this law. Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and around it the churning water settles. Notice that the rock does nothing spectacular. It doesn't hit back, doesn't explode, doesn't return the wave. It simply keeps being what it is, in the place where it is, with the same density, day after day. And that's why the entire ocean can't move it. That's the man you're building if you take these 7 laws seriously. Not a man who wins arguments, a man who isn't moved. Now I want to put all 7 together and show you what this looks like in a real day. Because on paper, everything is easy. It's 6:30 in the morning. The alarm goes off. You pick up your phone, and the first thing on the screen is a work message, sent at 11 the night before, in a tone you didn't like. Your body answers before you do. Chest tightens, thoughts speed up, the reply starts assembling itself. First law, you notice. You don't answer. You put the phone down on the table and go wash your face. That message will still exist in 40 minutes, and by then you'll be a better man to answer it. 8 o'clock, meeting. Someone presents as their own an idea you gave last week. You feel that specific heat of injustice, which is the hardest one of all. Third law. Is it true? No, the idea was yours. So it isn't an inaccurate description of you. It's a dishonest act by another person, and those are 2 different things. Sixth law. Nothing important while hot. You don't expose anyone in front of 10 people, because a public fight is a game where the person who's right usually comes out worse. You make a note, and at the end of the day you handle it directly, in private, in a calm voice. Or you simply deliver so much over the following months that nobody confuses where the ideas come from again. Seventh law. 11 o'clock. That same colleague drops a little joke about you in front of the group, smile included. Second law. You don't answer in the moment. You look, you hold 3 seconds, and you go back to what you were doing. The line hangs in the air, and everyone hears it a second time. Fifth law. With no audience, the play closes. 2 in the afternoon. Traffic. Someone cuts you off and then honks as if you were the problem. Your hand already wants the horn. Your mouth already wants to say something. Fourth law. What is that person carrying to drive like that? It isn't about you. You don't even exist in their story. You're an obstacle between them and some problem of their own. Let it go. And notice, a minute later, if you didn't feed it, it evaporated. It cost nothing. 7 in the evening. At home. Someone you love says something that hurts. And this is harder, because here it hurts more and it matters more. Third law. Is it true? Maybe there's a piece of truth in it, and the piece of truth is what's hurting. Fifth law. In its domestic version, you don't enter the hot conversation, but you don't disappear either. You say you want to talk about it tomorrow, calmly, and then you actually do, 11 at night, you're lying down, and the whole day comes back. Every scene, every answer you didn't give. And here's the part almost nobody does, and it's the part that consolidates everything. You look at the day without cruelty and without discount. Where was I moved today? Where did I hold? What got to me more easily than it should have? Not as a courtroom, not as self-flagellation. As a man reviewing his own conduct before sleep, the way Seneca did it, with the lamp out, asking himself what fault he had cured that day. And then you sleep with something very rare. Not the feeling of having beaten someone. The feeling of not having been used. Now, I need to tell you the final things, and they're the most important of the night. The first is that not reacting is not the absence of feeling. If someone disrespects you and you feel anger, that isn't failure. That's biology. The Stoic doesn't work to stop feeling. He works to stop being commanded by what he feels. Seneca was a passionate, ambitious man full of contradictions, and he wrote about anger precisely because he knew anger from up close. Nobody writes 3 books about an enemy he never fought. You're going to feel it every day. Victory isn't a silent soul. Victory is the gap between feeling and acting getting a little wider every month. The second thing is that not reacting is not weakness. It's the rarest form of strength there is, because it's the only one with no audience. When you shout, everyone sees. When you hit back, everyone talks about it. When you hold, nobody knows. Nobody will applaud you for the message you didn't send. Nobody will ever know about the perfect comeback you swallowed because it wasn't worth it. Nobody's handing you a trophy for sleeping in peace on a night when you had every reason to burn it all down. And that's exactly why almost nobody does it. The entire world is teaching you the opposite. It's teaching you that fast replies are smart, that the man who doesn't hit back is a fool, that silence means agreement, that you have to take a position on everything, all the time, immediately, publicly. That isn't strength, it's reflex. And reflex is the easiest thing in a human being to manipulate because it doesn't require your permission. The man who can't be provoked is ungovernable from the outside. He can't be emotionally blackmailed, can't be squeezed at the right moment, can't be steered to the place other people want him to go. He decides from the inside. And here's where I have to hand you back the image from the beginning, the key to the house. You have an inner house, and you have the key in your pocket. And until today you were handing that key over with absurd ease. To people who don't love you, to people you'll never see again, to a sentence spoken in 2019, to a stranger in traffic, to a comment written by someone you wouldn't recognize on the street. Starting today, that handover has a price, and you're the one who sets it. Not because you turned cold, not because you gave up on people, but because you finally understood that your peace is not a bargaining chip, and it is no longer up for public debate. You don't owe the world a reply. You owe yourself a posture. And if something here tonight landed in the right place, if at some point you recognized a scene of your own, I want to ask you for one thing, and it isn't a favor to this channel. Write it in the comments, as a signal to yourself. I don't hand my peace to people who never built it. I choose my response. Write it because written things come back. 3 weeks from now, when someone provokes you and your hand reaches for the phone, that sentence is going to show up on the way. And in that 2-second window, in that crack where all of your freedom lives, you remember that you had a choice, and you choose. Because the silent man is not the one who feels nothing. He's the one who isn't commanded by what he feels. Welcome to Shadow and Wisdom. Until the next video, walk in the shadow without fear.